Hey everybody, Ken Clark here with the Get Your Fix team. I am here at the McKinley Club with Jim McPherson, the board president of the Arizona Preservation Foundation. And hello.
Ken, great. How are you today?
And we're going to talk about the State Fairgrounds and the charrette. I also want to say hi to Chris Allen, who's on with Allen Cinema, who's our amazing videographer who follows us around and does all this because he's a great guy. So, State Fairgrounds. It's one of these things that people talk about from time to time. It rises to the top. It's kind of a big issue, and then it kind of goes quiet again for a while, and nobody really knows what's going on with it. But it's really been, I don't know, low boil for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's what we want to talk about. And then the charrette that's been happening.
Sure. Well, it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
It'll be 5 years in July that we heard about the possible demolition of the 1938 WPA building.
And why is that significant, that building?
That building is a excellent example of New Deal architecture in our state, and the actual reason why it came into existence was to help men and women find jobs during the Great Depression. Okay. And then thereafter it became a site of a company, and then thereafter it was a part of the State Fairgrounds.
How far back do the fairgrounds go? How long have they been there or in existence? Or
well, the fair's been around since the 1870s, 1880s, when it was down south of downtown on Central Avenue along the Rio Salado River. Okay. But then there was a tendency for the area to flood. Mm-hmm. And so after a couple floods, people were saying, we need to move the fairgrounds. Yeah. Eventually, several years later, around the time of the statehood days, that the fair moved to its current location.
So 19th Avenue, McDowell, Grand.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's been there ever since. It's just obviously been growing and growing over the years. Mm-hmm. It started with what building?
It started with the Gem and Mineral Building in about 1912.
1912. And
that
somewhere,
still stands.
And when was the Coliseum built?
Coliseum was in the early 60s.
Early 60s. And why was that built? It was for who? That was for the Suns?
It was for the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Roadrunners, high school graduations, rodeos, wrestling, the whole thing. The whole gamut.
Okay. So this is the moment where I get to jump in and do my little bit of bloviating, because for as long as I can remember, and then talking to people who have been involved with the fair further back, the owner of the fairgrounds is the state. So the state legislature budgets the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds makes its own money through ticket sales, but the legislature has continued to fail to allow the fair to keep that money and reinvest it into historic preservation, or even give it the money that's necessary to do historic preservation. Now, I'm not trying to make Jim's job harder because he's got to talk to the legislature, so this is my opinion. If we care about our fairground and we want to see the best for that, I think the legislature and the governor needs to step up and make that contribution. So, back to Jim. Can you talk, I want to talk a little bit about what happened with the WPA building and why that's significant to where we are now.
Okay. So when advocates came together and found out that the building was going to be demolished, advocates do what advocates do and say, please don't do this. Yes. And so we stopped it with the help of Mayor Stanton, then mayor, who would actually brought in a couple of police cars to possibly stop the demolition, the backhoe ready to go. We also had another organization put in a temporary restraining order that we received from a judge, and he said, let's stop that and let's look at what the options are. And then the state legislature got involved. Then State Senator John Kavanaugh and then State Representative Leila Alston convened us, all the stakeholders, including fair representatives, to get together and say, okay, what are you going to do? Right. If you want to stop the demolition, if you want to save this building, either put up or shut up, or do something to help support the preservation of this building.
So where it stands now is you've raised some money to just stabilize the roof.
We have funding in place from several sources. The state of Arizona has put in $120,000. The city of Phoenix has said that they would put in $120,000 in addition, and then the Phoenix IDA would put in $80,000.
IDA stands for
Industrial Development Authority.
So we're waiting for the city of Phoenix to. Why are we not spent that money?
Okay, and then also we have in-kind contributions and about $40,000 in private private contributions. And what those funds would do would go towards the fixing the roof and a little bit of the stabilization around the exterior of the building to get it to a place where it can be fixed up on the inside. So where we're at today. With certain funds, like the City of Phoenix funding and the IDA funding, that's public investment. So the city is saying, well, if we're going to invest in this building, we need to have a promise from the state, who owns the building, that they will not demolish it over the life of the building.
And that's the easement that we're waiting
This is the
for.
easement.
It's just a legal agreement. We got to decide who owns it for how long and that kind of
And
thing.
sign that it will be protected during the life of the easement.
Okay. So what I want to move on to next is the question of the big picture here, because we don't have a lot of time.